this time I will be reading to you from, this is just a short paragraph in Britannica, the, I guess, Encyclopedia Britannica. And he talks, so it gives a potted history of Asimov and his career, and talk about a short story called The Encyclopedists, written in 1942, which was the beginning of Asimov's popular Foundation series. So it's basically modelled on the fall of the Roman Empire, which heralded in the Dark Age. So the Foundation series begins in the last days of the Galactic Empire, and Harry Seldon, who devises a discipline called psychohistory that allows prediction of future historical currents. He sets into motion a plan to reduce the predicted 30,000-year galactic dark ages to 1,000 years by gathering the brightest minds to the planet Terminus to form the foundation of a new galactic empire. Seldon also establishes a mysterious second foundation in an unknown location, and well, the rest is just, the twists and turns of the plot. But basically the idea is that psychohistory, the Foundation, and there were two, were designed to shorten the period of chaos from 30,000 years to 1,000 years, which I guess would shorten human suffering considerably. I think we all know that the fall of empire always generates great suffering through ruinous imperial wars, or invasion or revolution of the empire concerned. And I see that we are coming to these troubled waters of revolution, and well, some may say that the invasion has already taken place. And the common wisdom of these recurring historic events is that moral collapse always precedes imperial collapse. And what do we mean by moral collapse? It means basically men not being men not being able to do what they are supposed to do. What are men supposed to be able to do? They're supposed to defend things. They are either supposed to defend territory, property, their women, their children, or, well, what else are they good for? But in order to be able to risk their lives defending their territory, their property, their nation from invaders, they must first be able to defend principles. Unfortunately, because they are suffering from degeneracy, they do not recognize abstract ideas such as truth, justice, logic, morality, principle. If you don't recognize what a principle is, well, you can't follow it, and you certainly can't defend it. How long does it take for an empire to fall? It's several centuries. We know that the Roman Empire was in decline for quite a few centuries before it actually fell. We know this from when the Western and Eastern Empire split, and we also know when something must have happened when Constantine the Great decided to go for Christianity and abandon the imperial cult of emperor worship, which was fundamentally empty because nobody really believed in it. So if you have a national narrative that nobody believes in, such as, for example, now, we are supposed to be liberal, we're supposed to think that Western civilization, modern Western civilization, was founded on liberalism, but now there is a certain weariness about liberalism, the statue toppling, which is self-destructive, this lowering in status of the Founding Fathers, the inability of ordinary Americans to even comprehend their own history, my sadly failed attempts to get Americans to discuss what Washington actually said in his speeches. They might say, yeah, I read it. Oh, I read it a long time ago, and oh, it was such a long time ago that I forgot I'd read it. And then when they come back to me, they don't seem to show any understanding or any inclination to discuss it in greater detail, because what I'm saying is that democracy is dementia, and it is representative democracy, the operation of representative democracy, that has caused the rise of corporate America. And the rise of corporate America has, in effect, made the merchant class the dictators of national policy. And of course they are not fit to do it, because in the Hindu caste system, the Vaishyas are the third one down. So the Brahmins would be right at the top, being the priesthood, and then the one below them would be the warrior class, and then below the warrior class would be the business class, and below the business class would be the labourers, and finally the untouchables, which I suppose in modern times can be equated with unskilled manual labour, who are no longer fit for the purpose of working, who are being replaced by cheaper immigrant worker, cheap migrant, illegal immigrants, that sort of thing. So that is why your government doesn't care about you. It can easily replace you with refugees and illegal immigrants. And this is really the situation, and this is obviously a moral problem caused by the failure of your religion, which you are refusing to acknowledge. Now, why won't people with YouTube channels talk about these things? Because really I think they lack the courage to do so. They think that they can get away with not doing it because they have bigger channels. They don't have to talk about difficult things. They get their super chats, they get their income, so they don't care. So in effect, all these channels that are supposed to be operated by political activists who are supposed to have principles are also operating as you would expect business interests to operate on. And we all know that he who pays the piper calls a tune. So who pays a piper? Who pays the super chats to these unprincipled so-called nationalist YouTubers? The lowest common denominator, who like to have their prejudices confirmed, who don't like to be challenged with fresh ideas and challenged about their status in the world. You know, obviously the white male in the West has come down in status, and this would be an interesting thing to investigate, but they're not capable of self-reflection without blaming Jews and Muslims and foreigners and non-whites. Because that would be too upsetting, and basically they haven't been told. They haven't been taught reason by their parents, because, you know, it's generations of bad parenting whose mothers worked and basically didn't have time to reason with their recalcitrant children. But they would have earned enough money to bribe their spoilt brats with, well, toys and shit like that. And I suppose when they grow up, politicians have the business of dealing with these badly parented, infantilized, feminized men who just don't get it. That's why they are beyond reach. They can't talk about what nationalism is, how it should be defined. There's just a mulish silence, and when they do talk amongst themselves, they say, "Oh, what's the point of debate? We don't need to debate anything. We just need to double down on our super chats and our shitty incel ideas." That shitty incels want to mutually confirm and carry on in their shitty incel way. So that's how it's gonna be. Shitty incel ideas, gorging themselves on their shitty incel ideas. Just more of the same old shit. So basically, they like it. They like this corporophilia, and they can't get enough of it. They're not going to be asking any questions that might suggest that something went wrong and they might be responsible. They're not gonna go there in case it upsets their morons and vegetables in their chat, and the super chats dry up. Hello, Tiffany. Thank you for coming. But as I was saying about Isaac Asimov and his idea of shortening the period for between the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages. This is basically, the idea. It's going back on history and obviously, applying it to science fiction, and it's, well, I guess I'm lucky to have a childhood of reading. If I had the phone, I probably wouldn't read very much and wouldn't have much ability to concentrate on, well, doing anything. I mean, these days, if I want to read a book, I literally have to kind of program myself to do it and switch off the phone and, you know. But anyway, because younger people now no longer read, it is no longer required of them, and their knowledge is basically very shallow, very easily dislodged, basically. So whatever they learnt at school, whatever history they learnt at school, would be a very distorted version of the real thing. I can't really get Americans to even read the speech of George Washington, and or if they have read it, they can't discuss it. They can't discuss the fact that the founding of the American Republic was a rejection of Christianity and monarchy. I mean, to the extent that a few people that I know in the alt-right actually want a Christian monarch. People like Jay Dyer and someone called Gandalf, who would be described as un-American if Americans still had any kind of American identity. So, the freak asks me what I want to tell white men. I'm saying, I've said for so long and so many times that I think that your problem is that you don't have a moral system. And I mean by that, you don't have. Yeah, you don't have a moral system. What is a moral system? It would be religion. In the olden days, it would be religion. You may well ask me what kind of moral system people in China have. And I would have to say that it would be a mixture of Confucianism and, whatever the Constitution of China says, is what is the political orthodoxy that its politicians are supposed to follow. But I suppose these ideas are too abstract. But that is really what any religion is. It is a moral system, and it has been replaced by secular political ideologies such as communism and liberalism. Liberalism is a secular political ideology. So basically, the West has tried Christianity, which failed, and replaced it with a secular political ideology, which has also failed, and therefore, something else needs to be tried. And I'm saying that there is only one solution, and people don't quite agree. So I don't know if you understand. I just feel silly talking to somebody called the freak. But well, I mean that's the only interaction that I'm getting here that I can engage with, I suppose, in a political discussion. But I don't think anybody really understands when I say moral system, do they? And since they don't understand what a moral system is, they won't care when I say there isn't one. It's too abstract. And if I say religion, they'll say, well, I never believed in God. It's, So it's actually quite difficult to get through. Looks like a wash to you. What does that mean? I think we have a barrier of language here. So basically, in China, what they have is the political classes telling the Chinese what to believe, and it's always been like that. That's part of statecraft, and they will say, the ethical basis of the Chinese would be Confucianism, which is based in patriarchy and marriage and family and that kind of thing, and that would be the way of producing the next generation. And legalism is basically using the law to encourage and discourage certain behaviours. And it was tested to destruction by the imperial dynasty. In fact, there's a lot of similarity between what imperial China was doing, because basically they would have these corporal and capital punishments, and then it would say, well, if you've been charged with murder, you can pay a certain amount of money and not be punished, not be executed, not be incarcerated. And there was a time when I thought, well, why not? You pay for your crimes. I mean, that's the whole idea. And I guess what happened in practice must have been that people were falsely charged with murder or whatever imprisonable offence they had, and then silver would be demanded from them, and this would be used as a source of income from the state, which you can imagine would be hugely resented, in the same way that it is hugely resented by drivers that speeding tickets and parking offences are routinely issued as a way of the council getting an income from drivers. So the freak says, I'd love just a reverence for God USA had as recently as the 1980s, but our morality is based in Catholic Church Christianity. So you are Catholic. I mean, it's the same God, really, in a sense that Christians, or, whatever their Trinitarian conception of God that Jews and Muslims find so offensive, think they are believing in the most powerful God. The freak asks, how can American principles and morality be upheld when the proletariat choose not to believe? Now, you can't blame. It's not up to the proletariat. No, it's like, look, this was what the First Estate was for in France under the Ancien regime. You would have the priesthood telling people in France what the rules are and why they should follow it. And so it has to come from the top, and the top was considered, the First Estate. But we have a problem in the West because nobody really believes in the church anymore, and therefore really the people who are telling us who we are and what the rules are and how we ought to behave is really the Fourth Estate, the media. And we already know that the people who operate the media are liberals. And what caused everything to break down? I'm saying it hasn't happened recently. It was a process that really began with the American Revolution. Because if you look at what the American Declaration of Independence said, it was a rejection of a Christian monarch, George III. And so it can be deduced that the American Republic was a rejection of Christianity and monarchy. And therefore, we have to deduce the intentions of the Founding Fathers, and I found to my horror that a lot of Americans don't even know that 5 of the Founding Fathers weren't even Christian. I mean, do people know that? I mean, I don't know what the average American learns at school these days. But if the fact that 5 of the Founding Fathers weren't even Christian is being obscured from the ordinary American, then I'm afraid Americans don't understand their own history, do they? So if the foundation of American was in fact a rejection of Christianity, then I'm afraid the founding of the American Republic undeniably has Islamic roots, because there is a White House Quran. It belonged to Thomas Jefferson, and he drafted the First Amendment, or what later became the First Amendment. Why Christianity what? I don't know if you realise that Christianity is known for supporting the divine right of kings. And not only that, it supported the right of kings to determine the religion of their subjects under the Latin motto of cuius regio eius religio, meaning whatever is the religion of the monarch, that is the religion of his subjects. De Freak says, maybe it was a rejection of the authoritarian Catholic Church disguised as Christian. Well, look, the American Declaration of Independence was referring to George III, who was already Protestant. So they were. It wasn't the Catholic. I mean, the Catholic Church had already been rejected after the Protestant succession was secured when William and Mary came over from Holland in, was it 1630? Let me just check the date of the Glorious Revolution. 1688. So that was the end of the wars of the Reformation in Europe. And I know a lot of Catholics still haven't gotten over it, and people like Michael Boris and E. Michael Jones curse the Anglican Church for the lust of Henry VIII and the rejection by Elizabeth I of Catholicism. Her sister, her elder half-sister, Bloody Mary, was a staunch Catholic. But really, it was inevitable that Protestantism would assert itself, because when the European monarch had enough self-confidence to reject the Catholic Church, breaking from Rome would be an assertion of national independence. So that was why, eventually there would be the wars of the Reformation, because eventually all these Christian kingdoms in Europe realised that the Pope couldn't stop them from doing what they wanted and couldn't stop them from interpreting Christianity in their own way. But because Christianity only had inferior scripture, which is a word of mortal and fallible men who weren't even Jesus, let alone God, Europeans over the centuries just made up the rules as they went along. And then the Americans got fed up with it and said, no, these are the rules in the new world, and we're gonna make a big thing of it. We would be the proposition nation whose rules would be sacralized in a document called the Constitution, which would be based on, well, I think it's based on, it's intended to be based on God, right? Because we know that although the 5 founding fathers were not in fact Christian, they believed in God, or said they did, and they were Masons, and we know that Masons are required to believe in a creator, and this means that in practice Masonry is only open to members of the Abrahamic faiths. And I think really the purpose of Masonry is for the 3 Abrahamic faiths to declare their brotherhood with each other, and when the time for Jews and Muslims to tell Christians about the idolatry and blasphemy of Christianity, when it becomes safe for them to do so, that is what they will do. So that is my theory of the nature and purpose of Freemasons. I don't know why you keep referring to the Catholic Church, and I don't know what you mean by being a Jesus Christ Christian. I've never. Are you saying that you're part of a sect or something? Or is that your own name describing your own particular beliefs that nobody else shares? Then why do you keep mentioning the Catholic doctrine? Perhaps you were Catholic before? The inalienable rights has everything to do with individual agency and not some divine order and authority based on the family you are born into. Well, yes. So, one of the inalienable rights that the Quran confers on Muslims is the right to freedom of belief. It's a statement of fact that there is no compulsion in belief, because just because somebody says you're not supposed to say something and you will be punished if you say it, or they force you to say something and they will punish you if you don't say it, it doesn't mean that you believe in what you're supposed to say you believe or disbelieve in. And so it's a statement of fact that you cannot compel belief. You can compel lip service, yes, but you cannot compel belief. And the Quran, well, Islam anyway, is a rejection of monarchy, because we already know from the story of Muhammad that he didn't have surviving male offspring, and so the succession of his caliphate had to go to men who were not his male relations, and thus came about the idea of the Islamic Republic. So a caliph is not a king. he would be leader of a republic, because you are a republic if the succession of the national leader is not dependent on your being a male relation of the current monarch. So there is that's the difference, and that was what the founding fathers of America rejected when they rejected the government and the rule of George III. So inalienable rights would be our freedom of belief and our free speech. I don't know what you mean by divine order authority. I don't know what you mean. Why do you want me to accept that Muhammad was a born-again Christian? Is this what you actually want me to accept? You can prove that from the Quran. How? Hello, Diana. I'm sorry, I've jumped about the subjects. I started off by restreaming one of my old streams on Asimov's Foundation and the Purpose of Secular Koranism, and then I got tired of it and started talking about why I'm not getting engagement on my ideas. Of course, I understand it's because they are hated and very unpopular indeed, and I said it was because of these feminized and infantilized men who really don't see it as their responsibility to acknowledge the situation, and will keep continuing to blame everyone else but themselves. They will blame, it's not just Jews and Muslims and non-whites that they blame. Yes, they blame their political classes, and of course the government is to blame, but they themselves are to blame if they practice the same methods of censorship and denial that have been practiced on them. And of course they do it to me by not engaging with me and refusing to even discuss what could be the problem. And I'm saying, it's obviously the problem that Christianity is kaput, and so is liberalism, and Christianity is so kaput that its replacement with liberalism is also kaput. And I just don't get it, the impression that this is being discussed as a matter of urgency, or at all, in other channels. Oh, great, Diana, you have time now. Okay, I will close the stream so we can have a proper chat on our own stream, but I will make myself a cup of tea. Thank you for listening, and see you in about 5 minutes. Thank you, Diana. I'll give you the link so you'll know where to come. The freak says, oh, what are you trying to say? I'm not saying people shouldn't complain. I'm not saying that at all. Obviously you will complain if you're upset about something, but the next step is to acknowledge what the problem is instead of turning away and pretending you didn't hear just because you don't want to upset your subscribers. You know what I'm talking about. You know I'm talking about millennial. Have you heard of anyone talking any sense at all? other than this protracted whinging? Alright, I'm going to close the stream now, and I'll see you all in 5 minutes.